Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Let's go right to the mailbox with two questions, both of which are slightly complicated. One weirder than the other. I'm just going to say on the offset, if somebody is listening to this video later, I know this is not going to go well. I'm aware. I don't know what to do. So I'm gonna answer, because I think the questions pose an intellectual kind of question. But they're impossible to answer, really. All right, so here is the mail. It says, "Dear Perch, dear Perch, dear darling Perch, dear no, just dear Perch, dear Perch. I have two questions for you. I covered that in the intro, but thanks. I have two questions for you. Number one, why doesn't the MCU or the comic books use America Chavez? From the description in the movie Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and her appearance in the Ultimates, also the comic America Chavez, but yes, also the Ultimates. America Chavez is one of the most powerful characters in all of Marvel. She can basically rip holes between dimensions and is and is nearly one of the most powerful beings in the entire Marvel universe. It feels like, as a character, she would be a lock to be on the Avengers or one of the most powerful teams. Separately, didn't they reveal that America Chavez is a mutant? So, couldn't she be in the X-Men? They typically use America Chavez for Young Avengers or Champions. Has she been in the Champions? I don't know. Or the Young Kid team. But in reality, her power set is more powerful than the majority of the Avengers, or even all of them combined. Why do you think she isn't used? We'll get to the second question in a minute, but so first off, I think that, well, the biggest reason she isn't used is kind of because she is so powerful. If you take her powers to their conclusion, then, I guess to your point, do they need the Avengers anymore? If America Chavez controlled her powers as she does in the comics and other things to their full ability. Now, when Al Ewing, by the way, was writing the Ultimates, the 616 version of the Ultimates, America Chavez was on the team. He nerfed her a little bit to just, because to the point, if they truly set her loose, she could be the most powerful character on the team. If you think about that character in a movie, like you think about Endgame or the Infinity War, the Avengers movies, like if America Chavez is there, you don't have a movie. Like she could just dump Thanos in some of the reality done. Like it doesn't work as a premise. So that's kind of the problem in the movies is you have this ultra powerful character, and I don't know. I just don't know how you build plots around that after some point. In terms of the comic books, I think they did a little bit too much with America Chavez. They also didn't protect the character very much. I think right around the time Kelly Thompson was using her for West Coast Avengers. It's hard to have like Hawkeye, the Kate version, and America Chavez on the same team because it just the one is very different from the other in terms of power set. It's a little bit like, you notice back in the day, you didn't, you'd have Hawkeye in the Avengers, but you didn't have a lot of adventures where it's like Hawkeye and Thor go to take down, the Mole Man. It's not going to be a very interesting story because the power sets are so misaligned. Like at some point, you're like, well, what's Hawkeye doing? Same thing is kind of true with America Chavez. I think as a character, leave aside all the fact that you had a writer who wrote her annoying and, she seemed to be, when I say not protected, it means they were, I don't know, that solo book was not good. You had her redeemed a little bit through the Ultimates. You had her show up on West Coast Avengers and it was strange. You had weird monologuing by Kate, Hawkeye. Like you just had, it just wasn't a great, I don't know. They didn't do anything to like have people clamoring for interest to that character. A good, competent writer absolutely could, but again, you do have the problem of her power set is just out of control, and what are you going to do with that? Okay, so there you go. let's go to the second question. All right. My second question might be perceived as racist. I just want to say, if you ever find yourself writing that, cut bait. There's not a. And here's the rest of the story where it all kind of makes sense. It's not going to get better from here, but here's the question. That's why I say I think there's an interesting intellectual question in here, but it's also kind of an impossible one. I feel like I saw a YouTube video on this topic recently, but anyway, we'll get to the question. Might be a little racist. I prefer white superheroes over black superheroes. I'm not racist. I just like white superheroes better. None of the black superheroes really appeal to me. I have tried to read black superheroes like the Static Shock and Milestone universe and characters like Luke Cage, but all of them seem to be street level heroes with chips on their shoulder, and none of them are particularly interesting. As a result, I like white characters better, but I feel like if I said this in a comic shop, people might think I'm racist. Yeah, they probably would. I don't mean to laugh. I'm just, what do you do with this? Anyway, what do you think? Are white superheroes better than black? So, oh my God, don't ask it that way. Okay. Uh, I probably have a weird view on this that very few of you will agree with. And it is that, and I probably make an equally bad point as the letter writer, or this would be equally bad. Because comic books are imaginary characters, they're 2D drawings and then colored. When I say colored, I mean literally colored, colored on the page. The race of the character starts to be. I put it this way: a lot of comic book characters, if once upon a time, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were like, "Hey, make Ben Grimm black." We're going to color, when we're doing the little pictures of the flashback of his origin and everything, just Ben Grimm is black. So color him black. What would be different exactly? And I mean that question seriously. What would be different if just the writer and the artist were like, he's black? Would it change that much? Now, obviously, the writer would, have the ability, instead of maybe Ben Grimm isn't Jewish, although there are certainly black Jewish people, or black people who practice the Jewish faith. But would it change that much? The writer would be able to different things in the backstory and all the rest. But as a superhero, Ben Grimm turns into the orange thing monster. Is he white? Is he black? He's orange rocks at that point. And I guess where I'm going with this is the race of the fictional created character, honestly, it's arbitrary in a sense. What the writer is going to do with the character and their experience and everything else may be different, but by and large, it's very arbitrary. The character is just a race. If Professor X, if they made him black, what would that have changed? He still is a, telepath. He still has all these things. Now, maybe, a really bad writer, I would argue maybe kind of a racist writer, would suddenly have a bunch of racist stereotypes with Professor X. But, by and large, most comic book characters, if you just change the coloring on the page, could be any race. I mean, physical characteristics aside, by how the artist is drawing the character, obviously a Shang-Chi looks different from a Reed Richards in terms of facial characteristics and other things, but by and large, race is different than in real life, because in real life, people are obviously born, with their characteristics, born of a race, and on the comic page, they're invented. So I say all that because when you think about, is the character do you like white characters better than black characters? I mean, is it the power set? I can absolutely understand if you don't like street level heroes. If you were to tell me, hey, I don't like Luke Cage, but I also don't like Iron Fist, and I don't really like Daredevil, and I don't like the Punisher, and I don't like characters like that. I like my superheroes, flying around the galaxy. I am more I like Iron Man with these space adventures. I like the Guardians of the Galaxy. I like Thor. I like characters like that. But I hate street level heroes. And it is true that the comic book companies, during the 70s, 80s, there was, I don't know, just they would use black characters to be street level heroes more often. Not exclusively. I mean, you had Rhodey, you had John Stewart, you had Black Lightning. I think different writers wrote him in street level adventures, but he wasn't always what he was. He was doing big time adventures too. You have plenty of characters that are doing different things, and especially in the last 20 years or so, you have different characters doing different things. But I think if that's the argument, then no problem. I would advise you not to go in a comic shop and say you just like the white superheroes better than black superheroes. Yeah, that won't be taken well. There's not a good way to land your point. You'd be thrown out of a comic shop before you actually got to the nuance of your point. But admittedly, I'm reading this mail. I don't know the nuance of your point. Like I said, are you objecting street level heroes when you look at you look at Blue Marvel? Okay, Blue Marvel as a character is not a street level hero. He's about as opposite of that as you get. He's a super scientist. He's a billionaire. He is got Superman level powers, kind of all this stuff. He's all those things. So what is if you say I don't like street level heroes and I don't like Blue Marvel, then at some point it's like, okay, maybe you just don't like black people. On the page, you say you're racist. That's fine. I mean, I don't know you, so we can believe what I'll believe what you want to believe, but it has to be more than just I don't like the way this character is colored, because if you're making the judgment call based on white black that way, then yeah, that's kind of sus. If you're saying I don't like stories that are dealing with race, okay, that's fine. That's type of story. But I think that I don't know. I it's a weird question. I guess I'm curious for the audience. Now we've answered this in the most awkward way possible. What do you think? Do you is there what am I missing here? Because I think that if it's just the skin color as colored on the page, I mean that's just weird, especially in a universe where you've got, as I said, you got Ben Grimm running around orange, you have Gamora green, you have that that underage girl that Hal Jordan was banging, who was what color was she? She's like a orangish yellow. Am I remember that right? Anyway, um, what what say you? I don't even know where to go with this. Anyway, that's my opinion on both topics, and thank you for an awkward mail. Thanks for listening.